Coming up next on Headline Humboldt, another installment of our special series, What's Wrong with Humboldt and How to Fix It. Reporter Linda Stansberry joins us live to talk about skilled nursing facilities and the crisis of care in Humboldt County. Also, Headline Humboldt's Eric Black reports on a brewing conflict between Cal Poly Humboldt and the Arcata Fire District, who has expressed concerns about its ability to protect a future off-campus apartment complex. Coming up now on Headline Humboldt. From the top of Humboldt Hill, this is Headline Humboldt. I'm James Faulk. Thanks for joining us. One of the privileges of this job for me is working with a fantastic group of freelance journalists who thrive on making a positive difference in our community. These next 2 weeks will feature great work from two such reporters who don't settle for the easy story or remain content to report the minutes of this or that legislative body. Instead, they've dived deep into systemic issues facing our community, and their work has provided all of us with the insight and, frankly, the outrage necessary for change. Next week, reporter Ryan Hudson will be here to talk about her recent work profiling the homeless presence in and around the Eureka Slough, a journalistic adventure that has led her to hike through the storm-washed wetlands and interview folks often belittled or ignored by the media and the social systems supposedly put in place to help them. And this week, we're absolutely thrilled to once again host Linda Stansberry, who has partnered with us here at KEAT to produce an ongoing series and podcast, What's Wrong with Humboldt and How to Fix It. Tonight, we'll be discussing the crisis of care in Humboldt County, how the area's skilled nursing facilities are too often substandard and actually put our seniors at risk. Stansberry has been following the story for years, researching their condition, ownership, and finances, ultimately unveiling a broken system that demands reform. Thanks for joining us, Linda.
Thank you for having me.
So, first question seems obvious. What is the crisis at skilled nursing facilities?
Well, where do we start? I think we should start with the fact that the majority of skilled nursing beds in Humboldt County are owned by one company that has a monopoly, and they have complete control over those facilities. And the current standard of care is not great. So recently, investigators with the Department of Public Health went in and they found a lot of people suffering from conditions created by understaffing. And this has been a consistent problem for at least 20 years, unfortunately, understaffing in these facilities.
What's the company so that people can get an idea of who we're talking about?
Sure, that is a complicated question.
Okay.
So the company is Breeze Healthcare. Mm-hmm. However, they have a network of smaller companies and LLCs that eventually trickle down to the ownership of these facilities.
It's kind of like the Russian nesting doll of, it happens now with corporations. One into another and feeds into another.
Right, and so this is deliberate. It is a attempt to, shield the company from liability by having a series of LLCs and management companies.
Okay. Now, is it particularly bad in Humboldt County, or is Humboldt County another site where this is occurring? I mean, the fact that there's, close to a monopoly here, obviously it creates some pressure, but is it worse here than other places?
Well, I couldn't speak to what's happening statewide, except that I know from talking to folks who are doing work statewide that there are systemic issues. There are problems with substandard care across the state. In particular, connected to this company, they have one of the worst reputations in terms of patient care. They have had a history of facilities being shut down. In one case, a facility in Fresno, I believe it was shut down, and they basically bussed all of their patients who were in there overnight. Well, this is what I heard from a patient, to Humboldt County, so hundreds of miles away from where they were.
Wow.
Right? Again, because we have a monopoly of these skilled nursing facilities in Humboldt County, what we're seeing is that they have occasionally leveraged that monopoly to threaten to shut down facilities unless they had a higher rate of reimbursement from the state.
Wow.
And in many cases, people have had to leave Humboldt County to receive the care they need. So again, hundreds of miles away from their friends, their families, their system of care.
Yeah, that's tragic. I mean, how did you first get onto the story? Was it something that someone called you up and said, "Hey, I got this. There's people that are suffering at the care homes"? How did you find out about it?
Yes, literally that.
There
I
you
got a
go.
tip in 2015 when I was working for the North Coast Journal that the local skilled nursing facilities weren't accepting patients. And it was a real learning curve for me, first learning what skilled nursing facilities are. So these are facilities that differ in some respects from residential care facilities, what we call old folks home, because they provide, or they're supposed to provide, a higher standard of medical care for folks who have medical needs, such as, being turned if they are paraplegic or have mobility issues, catheterization, oxygen. Essentially, they need nursing care. So at that time, what had happened was these facilities had stopped accepting patients, saying that they could not adequately staff their facilities, and so they couldn't accept any more patients. What we came to understand from this is they were telling the HMO that was giving them money from Medi-Cal that they needed more money from them before they would accept more patients.
Wow. Who would you say is responsible for all this? Is this something that's on the company alone, or is this more of a systemic failure?
I would say it's a systemic failure. Some people might say it's a failure of for-profit healthcare. The owners of these companies aren't doing it because they are, really invested in the health and well-being of people who need medical care. From my opinion, they're doing it because there's a profit in it.
Yeah, I mean, that's no secret. That's how the profit system works. In a Headline Humboldt exclusive, Linda sat down with Tony Chicotel, staff attorney for California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform, to talk about this issue and what's at stake. Can you set this up for us, Linda?
Sure. Tony Chicotel and I have spent a lot of time on the phone over the past, how long has it been? 8 years since I broke that first story. So he is with the California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform, and they're one of the nonprofits in Sacramento that is really pushing for some systemic reform.
All nursing homes are very motivated to treat and house short-term rehabilitation residents who have Medicare coverage coming from a hospital because the money's very good. It's very lucrative to take care of those kinds of residents. The problem is the Medicare benefit is very short-lived. It's only up to 100 days, and in most cases, Medicare wants to terminate the coverage sometime between 2 to 4 weeks after the resident's been placed there. So it's very short-lived, but it's very lucrative. So a lot of facilities and chains try to maximize the number of residents coming in from hospitals, give them their 2 to 4 weeks of therapy, and then move them out and replace them with a fresh batch of residents from the hospital. All nursing homes want to do that. What I've seen that's different in the Brias facilities and then some other facilities around the state, they have a slightly different model, which is more tolerant of longer-term residents whose care is not being paid for by Medicare, but by Medi-Cal, which is the state-run program that pays for long-term care in nursing homes for people who can't afford it. But there's no time limit on it. So you can be on Medi-Cal and live in a nursing home for 20, 30 years in some cases. The money is not nearly as good as it is in with the Medicare benefit. But I think where the business model prospers is that you have very low staffing in these facilities. So you're not getting as much money, but you cut staffing down to the bone, and you're still able to secure a pretty healthy profit. Another thing that characterizes the Brias nursing home chain and a lot of other chains in California is the use of related party entities. And so this is where a company sets up other companies to provide services to the facility. So to serve as vendors for the nursing home. They're all owned by the same group or organization or person, and the related party entity can inflate their costs for their services to the facility. And it looks like a legitimate cost in the accounting books, but it's actually an inflated rate that turns profit over to the ultimate owner of all of these companies. Most of the care that's provided in nursing homes is paid for through government funding, and it's insufficient to get us good care. Now, I think that for the most part, the money is satisfactory. It's just so much of it is funneled away from the care and into the pockets of the owners and the managers of the facilities. So getting more bang for our buck is certainly one problem. And I think the second real significant systemic problem is enforcement. We have a lot of good rules, a lot of good laws, a lot of good regulations to protect residents of long-term care facilities and to ensure, that's supposed to ensure that they get good quality care. But the enforcement is very weak. And because the enforcement is so weak, the providers don't have a lot of disincentives for violating those rules. So we see constant rules violations that oftentimes lead to harm and in some cases death of residents. They can continue to happen because the enforcement is so weak and the consequences for violations are so minimal. The big violation that we see over and over again that leads to so many problems with quality of care and with respect for resident rights and dignity is understaffing. Both in assisted living facilities and in nursing homes, there are rules related to having enough staff to meet the needs of the residents in the facility. And in nursing homes in California, there's actually a number of staff people you need to have to provide a certain number of hours of care per resident per day. And those are constantly violated. I think it's just sort of, at this point, background noise for regulators to hear that facilities are understaffed. I think the long-term care industry is doing a pretty good job of controlling the narrative, arguing that it's a labor crisis, that there's just not enough staff to do the jobs that they want to pay people to do. But this has been a problem for many, many decades, not just the last couple years or since COVID. It's that the work conditions are so terrible because in so many facilities, the culture is terrible and the leadership is terrible, but also that they pay so little. So much money, as I said before, so much of the money is being diverted into profit and away from care. So wages are kept very depressed and no one wants to work in these facilities. So the labor shortage is really of the industry's own doing. In any long-term care facility where you have a certain number of residents, let's say more than 5, and you've got just one worker providing the care, there are times where it is just impossible to give them all the care they need because some residents need total assistance with certain activities. And if there's a second resident who needs care at that particular time, they're not going to get it. So either they're going to have to wait or never get it at all. And when we're not providing these very basic needs like nutrition and toileting and position changes to get pressure off of certain parts of the body and off the skin, doesn't get done, really bad things result. People fall, they have an incontinence issue that leads to urinary tract infection or other infectious disease. They lose weight, they get pressure sores. It can be pretty awful pretty fast. So having enough staff to meet the needs of the residents is totally critical. Well, Humboldt County is unique because the nursing home industry in the county is dominated by one provider. My understanding is that they have a virtual monopoly over the nursing home beds in the county and has used that position to get concessions or try to get concessions related to reimbursement rates and sort of cherry picking residents. So that's unique. And, there's an interesting history with those facilities that were the subject prior to the current owner. They were sued and there was a huge class action settlement in a case involving I think there were 5 facilities at the time in Humboldt County, maybe 6, of a nursing home chain that had 22 facilities throughout the state. And there was a jury verdict for $677 million for chronic understaffing going back 3 or 4 years in all 22 of those nursing homes. It was a many months long trial. It received a fair amount of national attention and really set a pretty great standard in California for private bar attorneys doing the work that our state licensing agency should be doing in terms of policing the understaffing that's going on. Once that jury verdict came out, there was a settlement reached. I think it was somewhere around $67 million was the ultimate settlement figure. Those nursing homes, or that nursing home operator, went bankrupt and sold the facilities to another owner who I think is running those facilities now. So ultimately, what that means, I think, is there's not a whole lot of competition within the county. I mean, there's very little competition among nursing homes as it is, which I think is one of the problems. The worst nursing homes get paid and have roughly the same census figures as the best nursing homes, which I think is a huge problem. But I mean, every little bit of competition I think helps, and there's virtually none in Humboldt County, which I think ultimately harms the residents. The reason why the state has shown so little interest in profit maximization in nursing homes at the expense of resident care and the use of related party entities to sort of hoodwink the state into what its costs really are, and it enables the facilities and the industry to come back to the legislature every 2 or 3 years and ask for more money. The reason why we have so little interest from the state in that is because the state sees its role, the state government sees its role as trying to keep a very healthy nursing home industry in the state. So they want to keep the industry viable. So rather than a consumer protection agency for nursing home residents, the state is really running a provider protection agency. They'll give lip service to the regulatory requirements and to resident concerns, but ultimately, in my now pretty much vast experience in nursing home policy, when push comes to shove, the state is going to make sure that the providers have ample financial incentive to stay in the business and provide long-term care services. So in a sense, nursing homes know that they provide a very important and specific service to their communities, and they're expensive to run and hard to start up. And so they have market power, and they're not going to. So there's always this threat among state policymakers that a nursing home may shut its doors and have, in the short term, 100 residents with no place to go who need very extensive care. So that's a nightmare. And then in the long run, the community will have less long-term care services available, nursing home services available to the residents, and that doesn't look good. That ends up not being so good, especially in the absence of viable home and community-based service alternatives. Nobody ever wants to go to a nursing home. Mm-hmm. And that should tell you everything you need to know. I mean, we're spending billions and billions of dollars just in California on something that all the consumers tell you they really don't want. That's a problem. We need to rethink how the care is delivered and how we pay for it.
Thanks, Linda, for that. That was amazing. If money, these things are ostensibly profitable. Obviously, they stay in business. But if money isn't being spent on improving the conditions or paying employees, what is the money being spent on?
Well, what I found in 2016, 2017, when I revisited this issue, is that a lot of money is being spent, as Tony said, on related party expenses. Yeah. So related party expenses, this is a standard term that comes up in the tax forms that are filed by these companies with the state. Mm-hmm. Those are companies that are also owned by the same owner of the skilled nursing facility. Yeah. So what we see with Brius is that they're paying themselves for medical supplies. They're paying themselves rent through a third-party company on buildings that they own. They're paying themselves consultancy fees, home office fees, you name it. Mm-hmm. What I found in 2016, 2017 was while the company was threatening to close down facilities here in Humboldt County, claiming a shortfall of $5 million for paying people to staff their facilities. Yeah. They were paying themselves $5 million through thereabouts through related party expenses. Wow. So what I found this year, or excuse me, last year in 2022, when I revisited this issue, is that actually over the past 4 years, the number of related parties that they're paying has essentially doubled.
Wow.
Over the last 4 years, they've managed to pay themselves $31.5 million.
$31.5 million. Wow.
In related party expenses,
Yeah.
including, workers' comp company that's based in the Cayman Islands, like you name it.
Shell game is a term that comes to mind, although, I mean, if you have a bunch of different companies all under the same ownership and there's money moving around, it's really hard to keep track of how much of that is actually justified spending and how much of it is just pushing money around in a pile. How have legislators responded? I know that your reporting got a lot of attention, and you mentioned that Jim Wood has tried to do some work, but that Governor Newsom at the last minute decided not to support the bill. Is that right, or could you clarify that for me?
Right. So I became interested in reporting on this last year because I saw Jim Wood had come out with a bill that would have mandated 80% or so of all state dollars be spent directly on patient care instead of related party expenses. So that bill went through the whole process, with the legislature. At one point, actually, they removed the Medicare spending component of that, leaving only Medi-Cal spending that would be, mandated to be spent on patient care. Ultimately, Governor Newsom vetoed it, and he did that before my article came out. But
Wow.
yeah.
Do you have any sense of what his reasoning was and if there was any justification to the veto?
Well, I am no legislative analyst.
Sure.
So the rationale in his decision not to sign the bill was that there are other markers of progress that were being put into place. So essentially incentives for companies to meet certain benchmarks before they receive payment, and that the bill would put forward would be in conflict with that. What Tony Chicotel said when I asked him about that was that the companies will simply change, how they report things to meet those benchmarks.
Sure.
And it's a gamification that happens pretty often with
Yeah.
our taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. And the companies that have the most money to figure out those strategies are the ones that get away with it too often. In order to put pressure on the legislator or even the governor, what can people do to raise, the profile of this issue?
I think that we don't have a good understanding of what is actually happening in a lot of these facilities. I think that it's a population that we as a society spend a lot of time ignoring until we have a friend or family member that ends up there, which, has happened to me. It's happened to a lot of people. And I think that understanding that there are people actively suffering right now, maybe a half a mile from the studio, down the street from here actually, is an important place to start. Keeping your eye on it, talking to your representatives. I know Assemblymember Wood has been a very strong advocate for reform of the system, for example.
We only have about 45 seconds left, but one of the most important things that this prompts is for people to do retirement planning and to plan how they're going to take care of themselves in the future, right?
That is absolutely true. I think the age that you and I are about this age, James, is when we should start planning for this, not when we're ready to retire.
Yeah.
I also want to put a plug in for the Area 1 Agency on Aging, which has a volunteer ombudsman program that people can volunteer with, and those are advocates that actually go into nursing homes and help protect patient rights. So if people are really interested in helping with this, that would be a good place to start.
Well, thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Once again, I'd like to remind our viewers, if you like this story and would like to dive deeper in, you can listen to our podcast, What's Wrong with Humboldt and How to Fix It, Episode 3. It'll be available wherever podcasts are available. So we'll be right back after this short break.
Hi, I'm Chef Patty Hinich. It is a pleasure to show you the wonderful food and culture of Mexico all these years. Show your love for public television by becoming a sustaining member of your local public TV station. Watch episodes of Patty's Mexican Table and other favorite shows anytime with Passport on the PBS Video app.
Arcata's town and gown tension is erupting into a firestorm. Next month, Cal Poly Humboldt plans to break ground on off-campus apartments, but the Arcata Fire District says it lacks firefighters to protect the building's future tenants. Headline Humboldt's Eric Black reports.
The university plans to house nearly 1,000 students at Craftsman's Mall. In the project's environmental report, Cal Poly said the 6- and 7-story buildings would not overstretch the Arcata Fire District.
And we wrote them a rather pointed and strong response saying that we didn't think that was the case.
A firefighter spokesperson said best practices require 38 firefighters to arrive within 10 minutes to fight a fire in a 4- to 8-story apartment building. It would take Arcata Fire and its regional partners at least 42 minutes.
Those minutes would be potentially lethal. People stuck in a building, smoke inhalation. We don't believe that we will generate revenues in the next 25 years to increase our staff.
And then as far as Cal Poly, we have begged, pleaded, threatened. We can't make them pay their fair share. I know we need housing, but we need safe housing.
All of your problems may go away if the state comes through and says it is so important for them to have those 6- and 7-story buildings that will give you $5 million a year, plus build you another station.
The city has no authority over the university. It cannot tax CPH, nor can it limit Cal Poly's construction. The city does have jurisdiction in the Gateway, where city officials are contemplating allowing 5- to 8-story, 50- to 90-foot tall apartment buildings.
We are recommending to you that you limit building heights at the current time to 40 feet. That's under 4 stories, and that you would hold that in place until there was adequate funding.
It's also cost feasible and reasonable to have a mitigation measure that says when you build a building over X stories tall, you have to contribute to a fund. And that fund then goes towards, purchasing new equipment for services that can't currently be provided.
It's unclear whether that fund would also pay for fire staffing or whether the city council will approve the high-rises. The university says it will respond to Arcata Fire's concerns. Eric Black, Headline Humboldt, Arcata.
Thanks, Eric, for that report. That's it for tonight. Enjoy your long weekend, and we'll definitely see you next week. Stay tuned. Stay informed.